And we are live. Hi, how you doing? Salutations. This is John Crump, and this is John Crump News, and we're coming to you from the breaking news studio because we're breaking news today. Of course we are. And there is a couple different stories that we are going to talk about. The first thing we're going to talk about is what happened in the Ninth Circuit today on the en banc, which is the full bench, and how it calls the circuit split. And we're going to talk about that circuit split. And then we are going to talk about other stuff. So just give me a second here. Just give me a second. Give me 1 second here. All right. So we're going to be talking about a couple of different things here. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Flying Rich will be joining me soon. And I'm getting some other news here. So just this might be actually something big. I don't know if I can talk about it, which might be a whole nother video. But let's just jump into this. Let's go talk about Shorty here. That's good. That's really good. I wish I could talk about that, but let's just go ahead and do this one. Let's see. This one is this the right one? Yes. Here it goes. All right. This is the wrong one. If it's the wrong one. All right, that's the wrong one. We're gonna do this one first. This is the United States versus Stephen Dorte, also known as Shorty. It's 127 pages, so we're not going to read through it all, but we're just going to highlight a little bit of what this is. Basically, this was an appeal from the district court level. It deals with a guy that is a felon, and he was busted for a felon in possession of a firearm. The felony he was charged with, and this is an as-applied thing, so just letting you know this. The felony that he was charged with was a non-violent felony. And we all know what happened in the Range case. The Range case said that non-violent felons cannot be disarmed. In fact, in Rahimi said that you can temporarily disarm someone if they're a danger to themselves or others. This guy did not prevent a danger to himself or others. So if you look by the Rahimi framework mixed with the Bruin framework, it should have been a slam dunk. And in fact, when it went to the 3-judge panel, it was. But the government, pre-Trump, I will say, filed a notice of appeal to the Ninth Circuit en banc. The Ninth Circuit en banc is the full bench, but in the Ninth Circuit, it's not really the full bench. The Ninth Circuit's really, really big. So basically, there's 2 en bancs in the Ninth Circuit. One of the en bancs got it, and they have ruled that 922R, which is the thing that says you can't own a firearm if you're a felon, is constitutional.
No, it's 922G.
922G, sorry, as applied to non-violent felons. So
wow,
his conviction was upheld. Like the felony that he was found guilty of was vandalism. So because of that
vandalism.
because of that vandalism felony.
So basically, it's vandalism, and he vandalized more than what, $1,000 worth of property,
something like that. But they said that, but the Ninth Circuit is saying that you can disarm a nonviolent felon, which goes directly against range. Now, the arguments and everything was made before the new Justice Department, and we all know the new Justice Department stance on this. In range, they did not go for an en banc because they agreed that nonviolent felons should not be disarmed. What this means is we now have a circuit split. Now, this is a loss for 2A. I will admit that. But there is something else.
But wait, there's more?
Yes, it causes a circuit split. Now, if Dirte here wants to appeal to SCOTUS, since there's now a circuit split because of this ruling, SCOTUS will be likely to take it up because of a circuit split, right?
Correct.
And if they do grant cert, if he does appeal, go for a cert, who will be arguing against them? The DOJ.
And the DOJ is very likely not going to defend this position.
No, they won't defend it. They'll say, yeah, we agree with them. Because they already said that they agree with nonviolent felons should not be disarmed in the range case. So
because was the executive order Trump said, hey, give people back their gun rights?
Yeah. Men states says, but can we trust SCOTUS to rule in favor of the Constitution? Now, if the DOJ argues for Dirte in this case, yeah. But this is Brandon brings a good point. This is as applied, so it's only going to apply to Mr. Shorty here. But he has a good chance of winning at SCOTUS.
I hate how complex all this stuff is. Like, I just want to win, make it clean, make it simple.
It's never clean or simple, Rich. You know that.
Yep.
So this is definitely right here a loss for 2A, but I think Dirte, if he appeals, he has a good chance, or no, if he files for a writ for Sherry, he has a good chance of being taken up. Now, I want to point out, look how many, like, all the amicus briefs and everything. You see a bunch of people on here that you might recognize. Some people from the I would say from like different like places, like a lot of community defenders office, which arguing against it. The Cato Institute, which is saying, hey, you know, you got to knock this down. National Rifle Association did this. Civil Liberties Union. So they've done all this stuff. Then you have some attorney generals from some anti-gun states, including Rob Bonta and others. You got New Jersey in there, Maine. You got Keith Ellison, Minnesota. Letitia James, stuff like that. So this was not a win, but it is something that it's going to probably get overturned at the Supreme Court, hopefully.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Bruin, all right, so our flat says Bruin has been turned into just a suggestion.
Basically.
So I've come around on my opinion to be more libertarian about this, or more liberal about gun rights, let's say, and which is congruent or contrary to what everybody would think it would mean. I believe if you're not in custody, that you should have all of your rights back and to all of your property, whether it's cars, trucks, vans, airplanes, boats, homes, or firearms. Because if you're safe to be among the general population, you should be safe to enjoy the rights of the general population.
Yep. Okay, and you want to see the second case? Now, this one we will read through because there's a couple interesting nuggets in here that I want to go over. This is Marian Hammer versus the National Rifle Association.
The cat lady. She's from Florida, right?
Yeah, she for years she was
head grifter.
Yeah, so I want you to read this because we're going to run into some interesting things here.
Marian Hammer has given her entire working life to NRA time and again. She was called upon to fearlessly, I don't recall any of this, defend the NRA and Second Amendment rights while enduring the wrath of NRA opponents. Boo-hoo.
And
vigilantes who repeatedly tried to intimidate her and force her to desist from the NRA and its mission.
Yeah, she was getting like 300,000.
All right, you know what? You could call me all sorts of bad names for that chunk of change. Over time, plaintiff became the female face of the NRA, which in turn relied on plaintiffs' association and efforts, particularly with respect to its outreach to women. Never heard of it. Her lifetime efforts have been recognized by the NRA, which has bestowed Marian P. Hammer Woman of Distinction Award to over 20 female recipients since 2025. To this day,
2005.
NRA's website proudly displays her image and a list of award recipients. Blah website. Now, after giving the fruits of her life's labor to the NRA, she has been abandoned, boo-hoo, by the very association she fearlessly defended. Instead of honoring its commitments to her, NRA's turned its back upon its namesake woman of distinction, breached its final contract with her, and attempted to smear her impeccable reputation with cats. Most recently, in continuation of its retaliatory campaign, the NRA actively seeking to remove Marian Cat Lady from the NRA's Executive Council and extinguish her membership in the NRA as if she never existed. I'm okay with it.
I just want to bring up something that I want everyone to understand. I have something that, Rich, I've talked about a lot, and it's called the Tiger King theory. What is the Tiger King theory, Rich?
That there's no good people?
Sometimes there's no good people in a story. In real life, sometimes there is no good guys. Just putting that out there.
Whatever. As her entire life, Marian Cat Lady will now vindicate her rights. Plaintiff now brings an action for damages arising from the defendant NRA's unlawful breach of plaintiff's longstanding fair and reasonable enforceable contract with the NRA. In addition, the plaintiff brings actions to recover the statutory violations and unjust enrichment of the NRA arising from its continued and unlawful use of the plaintiff's image and likeness as part of the NRA's targeted attempt to increase its membership, particularly as it relates to women. Finally, because the NRA solicited contributions from the plaintiff and potentially others under intentionally false pretenses, plaintiff brings claims for fraudulent misrepresentation, conversion, and violations of Florida's deceptive and unfair trade practices.
Okay, we're going to skip the whole jurisdiction here and venue. You just go down to general
There
allegation.
is simply no dispute that the plaintiff has enjoyed long distinguished personal and professional relationship with the NRA for at least 45 years. During that time, the plaintiff received numerous accolades and awards from the NRA for relentless pursuit of the NRA's goals across the United States. In 1995, plaintiff became first female president of the NRA, where she served with distinction and successfully led the NRA. Marian Catlady has devoted her entire professional career to selflessly and loyally advancing the interests of the NRA and repelling attacks from groups adverse to their interests of the NRA. A review of the public domain reveals countless accolades extolling her efforts on behalf of the NRA on board already. The NRA will not deny these unassailable facts. Instead, it admits them. On its website, it describes her as a cat lady. Marian became a lobbyist during the 70s and worked with Florida's legislature to write pro-gun legislation. She is credited with influencing many of Florida's gun laws, including the 2005 Stand Your Ground law. The success of her pro-gun lobby has had an impact on similar laws across the United States. Marian began to develop NRA Eddie Eagle gun safe program for the children in 1988. To date, over 28 million have completed the successful program.
Yeah, then it links to rewards.
As correctly proclaimed by the NRA, Marian Catlady's efforts had a nationwide impact in advancing the interests of the NRA. The NRA has stated Marian is a trailblazer, a leader, outspoken activist, leader, blah. She is a staunch defender and protector of the Second Amendment, right to keep and bear arms. We celebrate her achievements and are inspired by her extraordinary life service. Marian Catlady's 2017 contract with NRA. In December 2017, plaintiff and NRA executed a one-year contract. The contract, which outlined the services plaintiff would provide to the NRA as part of the efforts to protect the Second Amendment across the United States. A true and correct copy of this contract is attached hereto, Exhibit A. The contract is valid binding agreement between NRA and the plaintiff. Pursuant to the contract, plaintiff was to perform services in the form of advice, analysis, other duties reasonably assigned by the executive vice president of the NRA and executive director, ILA, including providing information, advice, counsel, legislation, initiative, referenda, election communication, media matters, and other work related to services as may be represented by the NRA or NRA ILA contract. By operation of the contract, plaintiff was thus retained by the NRA to perform work assigned and requested. In addition, however, the contract bestowed the NRA with the right to restrain plaintiff from other engagements because, after all, plaintiff had been so closely aligned and assimilated with the NRA for many years. So while the contract noted that the plaintiff could consult with other clients, plaintiff could not accept without prior approval from the NRA any such engagement contract 4B.
Now,
in 2018,
the number 27 is interesting.
In 2018, the plaintiff was contacted by an attorney representing the Brady Gun Group. The group offered $5 million to the plaintiff if she were to retire and cease advancing her interests of the NRA and defending the Second Amendment. At that time, the plaintiff relayed the offer direct report at the NRA, Mr. Wayne LaPierre, NRA Executive Vice President. After contemplating the information relayed by the plaintiff, LaPierre contacted plaintiff very next day. Mr. LaPierre informed the plaintiff that he, along with the NRA Treasurer, Woody Phillips, and the NRA Chief Staff, Josh Powell, had developed a proposal that would assure the plaintiff's continued involvement in the NRA through a consulting arrangement while funding a retirement for her future. Although the new proposal would pay less than half the offer from the Brady Group, the proposal
for a few $1 million.
So an anti-gun group, the Brady Group, wanted to pay her off to leave the NRA.
I would have told the Brady Group to F off. And people are like, well, that's $5 million. You know what? I'm pretty sure I would tell them to F off. I think Rich will attest that I would tell them to F off.
You would, yeah, definitely. $5 million to retire. I mean, unless they want me to shill anti-gun. If they want me to retire, it'd be like, I'll retire for 5.
I won't because I would say just to piss them off because that's me.
Or from the Brady Group, the proposal would allow the plaintiff to continue working with the NRA for years to come. Under this new proposal, plaintiff's contract would be extended for an additional 10 years, and she could continue consulting on important Second Amendment issues nationally, putting her in position to ultimately retire from the national scene. Most importantly, however, the NRA would continue to control the plaintiff's other engagements and assure itself that the plaintiff would never be aligned with the opposition. Plaintiff reasonably relied on the representations and decided to forego other opportunities while remaining on the side of the NRA. As a result, the plaintiff and the NRA executed 10-year extension of the contract in the form of an addendum. A true, correct copy of the addendum is attached here, Exhibit B. Although Marian Catlady provided years of valuable service to the NRA, she was never included in the NRA's retirement plan. The contract and the addendum were in recognition of her dedicated service and to assist her in transitioning to the end of the contract term from dedicated NRA service to private life.
The addendum. Hold on. Here's the thing, though. She was a contractor, right? Much like I am with GOA. They're a client of my company, Black Swan Media Group. And I could, if I wanted to, I could have taken a W-2, but I didn't want to. I wanted to be a contractor, knowing that I would not get a retirement because contractors usually don't get retirement because they're not employed. Contractors.
So I have a corporation. John has a corporation. I do IT consulting. I work corp to corp. They pay me an hourly rate, and that's it.
I do special projects.
Addendum thus provided for Marian Catlady's continued services nationwide on behalf of the NRA by being available as a resource to provide guidance on issues and was unrelated to any duties Mrs. Catlady performed in the state of Florida. The addendum provided that...
I would yell at you for like ad-libbing, but I'm just going to let you go with it this time.
The addendum provided that Marian Hammer's original contract was amended to provide for a 10-year term together with a reasonable increase in payment terms in contract. The addendum continued to require Marian Catlady to not undertake any activities adverse to the NRA. In essence, a valuable non-compete arrangement was formed. Due to its importance, the addendum was discussed and ratified by the NRA Board Audit Committee during its meeting September 8th and 9th, 2018. Specifically, the Audit Committee with the NRA Council present and advising found that whereas, due to the unique experience and celebrated accomplishments over decades of experience lobbyists for the Second Amendment rights in Florida, the NRA has for several years engaged one of its directors, Marian Catlady, as a consultant, and whereas the NRA and the Audit Committee have determined that no other available individual possesses comparable knowledge and competencies as Marian Catlady in ownership of cats, and whereas
everyone's replaceable. I just want to say everyone's replaceable.
I mean, even popes and presidents, remarkably.
Yeah, everyone's replaceable. There's certain people that are harder to replace, but
I don't recall any specific accomplishment of Marian Catlady.
Like other even than Gretzky or Ovechkin. I mean, you might not get someone as good as Gretzky or Ovechkin, but there's people. But you know, everything will still move without them.
Yeah, I mean, they leave teams, they move on.
Yeah,
stuff happens. Whereas the NRA had determined that an increase in Mrs. Catlady's annual consulting fee from $168,000 to $222,000 is therefore appropriate, and the Audit Committee concurs that such an increase is fair and reasonable and the best interest of the NRA. Therefore, be it resolved that the foregoing increase is hereby approved and ratified. The committee further notices that any material change in terms of the contract or duties under the contract shall be disclosed to the committee and approved prior to execution.
All right, live life. Correct.
In this way, LaPierre, Executive Vice President, in conjunction with the NRA Board, Audit Committee recognized unique skills of Marian Catlady brought to bear nationally on behalf of the NRA. Since the inception of the contract, Marian Catlady has fulfilled her contractual obligations by being an invaluable resource of cats and providing respected guidance to persons owning cats in the NRA. Across the nation, she also has been a well-represented spokesperson in the interests of the NRA. She has foregone engagements that would conflict or were not approved of by the NRA. Even during this contract, the plaintiff endured death threats for her continued association with the NRA, as Mrs. Hammer stated.
So basically, this is just her suing. She's suing for breach of contract. We don't have to read this whole thing.
Is there a dollar amount? I mean, look, just get to the point. What's the dollar amount? How do I make you go away?
This is breach of contract, count 1. This is count 2. Count 3, count unjust enrichment. Count 6, conversion. Count 7, deceptive and unfair practices. So she wants damages or attorney fees.
So did they specify an amount here? So first, I don't understand. I guess that was in the counts. Like, did they show her the door and say, "Ha, you're not getting the 10 years," or?
Yeah, they fired her.
Yeah, okay.
To get the contract.
But I'm sure any kind of contract, there's performance. There's, I enter into contracts all the time, and I have to perform.
Yeah,
I seriously don't know of one thing Marian Hammer ever did. Not like I'm a Marian Hammer fanboy, but I don't know what she's done.
Yeah,
and look, there's a significant number of women out there that could do what this lady has done.
Yeah, she's kind of old. She probably needs to retire. I wonder how old she is. Born in 1939. 86.
I mean, all right, so Enjoyer says the NRA are grifters and made up of grifters and are grifters through and through.
Yeah, I'm not going to make any comments exactly on...
Well, I'm going to make comments. You can remain silent.
Yeah.
I'm not employed by the GOA or have a contract with them.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I don't like bashing most other
Somehow I'm okay with that.
Groups. But yeah, that's it. I just thought there was 2 stories. One broke. I was like, oh man, we got breaking news stories. Then all of a sudden the second one broke. I'm like, what the hell? Friday, man. Friday.
So are we doing a John Crump Live in 3 minutes on Rumble?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm working on some very important stuff behind the scenes for gun rights.
Cool. I've been breaking some very important things around my house, and I got to get it working again.
Yeah, I'm trying to benefit everyone here.
John's doing things for the greater good.
Pulling the puppet strings. That's all I got to say. Some people will see it and they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. but do what I can behind the scenes. Yeah. But yeah, that's it, guys. You guys have a great weekend. At the end of the month, I'll be in Roanoke for a short amount of time, and I got permission to book a direct flight to Roanoke from Dulles Airport.
Wouldn't it be quicker to drive?
Dude, it's quicker to drive to New York City than Roanoke, from where I am.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
Roanoke is, I'm in like the far northeast corner of Virginia.
Nova.
Yeah. Roanoke is in the far southwest corner. So the distance, I could cross the border into Canada before I can get to Roanoke. The mile, it's actually less miles to get to Canada.
Really?
Yeah. You're
So
driving
being
diagonal across the state. So it's not exactly a short trip. Well, yeah. We're gonna get out of here, guys. You guys have a great weekend. Honestly, I hope I don't talk to you over the weekend. I probably will, though. I probably will. And I love you all. And I'll see you guys later.